Her car died on the side of a dark highway with her 2 kids in the back seat, no phone signal, and a storm rolling in fast. She had $11 in her purse and nowhere to call for help. Then a set of headlights slowed down behind her, and everything about that night changed. Her name was Melissa Grant, 33 years old, a single mother of 2, 7-year-old Ava and 4-year-old Noah, living in a small rental house outside Little Rock, Arkansas. Melissa had left an unhealthy marriage 2 years earlier, working hard ever since to rebuild a stable life for her children on her own, juggling a job at a call center with the exhausting, constant balancing act of raising 2 young kids without much of a safety net beneath her. That particular evening, Melissa had been driving back from her sister's house, nearly an hour away, after a rare weekend visit that had lifted her spirits more than she'd expected. Her car, an old sedan with well over 150,000 miles on it, had been making a concerning noise for weeks, one she kept meaning to get looked at but never had quite enough spare money to address. About 20 minutes into the drive home, on a stretch of dark, mostly empty highway, the noise turned into a hard shudder, and the car lost power completely, coasting to a stop on the narrow shoulder as the first heavy drops of an approaching storm began hitting the windshield. Melissa sat there for a moment, heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. She tried the ignition several times, but the car wouldn't turn over at all. She checked her phone and found, to her growing panic, that she had almost no signal on this particular stretch of highway, only enough for a single bar that flickered in and out unreliably. In the back seat, Ava, sensing her mother's fear, asked quietly, "Mommy, are we okay?" "We're going to be just fine, baby," Melissa said, forcing calm into her voice despite the fear rising in her own chest. Noah, exhausted from the long day, had already fallen asleep in his car seat, blissfully unaware of the situation unfolding around him. Melissa tried calling her sister, but the call dropped almost immediately, the unreliable signal cutting out before she could even explain what had happened. She tried a few more times, growing more desperate with each failed attempt, the storm outside intensifying, rain now hammering steadily against the car, thunder rolling somewhere in the distance. She had $11 in her purse, not nearly enough to cover a tow truck even if she'd had reliable enough signal to call one. She had no roadside assistance plan, having let it lapse months earlier when money had gotten especially tight. She sat there in that stalled car, rain pounding outside, her 2 children depending entirely on her, and felt a wave of panic and helplessness wash over her more completely than she had felt in longer than she could remember. In that moment, exhausted, frightened, and completely out of practical options, Melissa did the only thing she had left to do. She closed her eyes, one hand still gripping the useless steering wheel, and prayed. "God, I don't know what to do. I don't have anyone to call. I don't have the money to fix this even if I could reach someone. My babies are counting on me to get them home safe, and I don't know how to do that right now. Please, God, please send us help. I don't know how else this is going to happen without you." She sat there for several long minutes after that prayer, rain drumming against the roof of the car, headlights of passing vehicles occasionally sweeping past without slowing, each one deepening her sense of isolation on that dark stretch of highway. Then, in her rearview mirror, Melissa saw a set of headlights slow down behind her and pull onto the shoulder. Her heart immediately jumped into a mixture of hope and fear, the practical caution of a woman alone at night with her children, wary of who exactly might be approaching. She watched carefully as a man got out of the vehicle behind her, an older pickup truck, and approached her car slowly, hands visible, clearly making an effort to appear non-threatening in the beam of his own headlights. Melissa cracked her window slightly, keeping the doors locked, her heart pounding. "Ma'am, I saw your hazards on and figured you might need some help out here," the man said, his voice calm and kind, rain dripping from the brim of an old baseball cap. "My name's Daniel. I'm not going anywhere near your car unless you want me to. I just wanted to check if you're all right, and maybe see if there's anything I can do to help." Melissa, still cautious but increasingly desperate, explained the situation, the car dying suddenly, no signal to call for help, 2 kids in the back seat, one asleep and one anxiously watching the stranger through the window. Daniel nodded, unhurried and patient despite the rain soaking through his jacket. "I've got decent signal on my phone. Let me call for a tow, and in the meantime, if it's all right with you, I'd like to stay parked here behind you with my hazards on too, just so nobody comes up too fast on your car in this rain. I won't come any closer than I already have unless you ask me to." Melissa, cautiously grateful, agreed, watching through her window as Daniel made a call from beneath the small shelter of his own truck's open door, arranging for a tow truck to come out to their location, patiently working through the frustrating process of trying to describe their exact location on an unmarked stretch of highway with limited landmarks. While they waited, nearly 45 minutes in total, Daniel remained a respectful distance away, occasionally checking in through Melissa's cracked window to update her on the tow truck's estimated arrival, careful and considerate in a way that slowly eased much of Melissa's initial wariness. At one point, noticing Ava peering nervously through the window at him, Daniel knelt down at a respectful distance and offered her a small, gentle wave and a warm smile. "Your mama's doing a great job taking care of you tonight," he said kindly. "You're safe. Help's on the way." Ava, comforted, offered a small, shy wave back. When the tow truck finally arrived, Daniel stayed until Melissa's car had been safely loaded and arrangements made for her and the kids to ride along to the nearest service station. Before leaving, he approached Melissa's window one final time. "I know tonight's been scary," he said. "I just want you to know, I don't think it's an accident I happen to be driving this stretch of highway tonight. I don't usually take this route home. Something told me to come this way tonight instead of my usual road." Melissa, still processing the strange, overwhelming relief of the past hour, felt tears well up in her eyes. "I prayed right before you pulled up," she admitted quietly. "I didn't know what else to do." Daniel smiled gently. "Then I guess I know exactly why I ended up on this road tonight." Before leaving, Daniel discreetly handed the tow truck driver enough cash to cover the full cost of the tow and the immediate repair estimate, quietly instructing him not to mention it to Melissa until after he'd already driven away, wanting to avoid, he later explained through the tow truck driver, any awkwardness or protest from a woman he could tell was too proud to easily accept that kind of help directly. Melissa discovered the gesture only after arriving at the service station, when the mechanic informed her that her tow and a significant portion of the repair costs had already been covered by the gentleman who called it in, refusing, per Daniel's instructions, to accept any further payment from her that night. Melissa sat in the waiting area of that small service station, her children finally both asleep in nearby chairs, and cried quietly, overwhelmed by a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and a profound sense that she had witnessed something far bigger than a simple act of roadside kindness. Melissa tried to track Daniel down in the days that followed, hoping to properly thank him, but found she had no way to reach him beyond the vague description she'd given the tow truck driver and the first name Daniel had offered her that night. She never saw him again, and despite her best efforts, was never able to locate him through the towing company or any other avenue she attempted. She shared the story with her small group at church the following week, describing the entire evening in detail, the panic, the prayer, the headlights appearing behind her at exactly the moment she had nothing left to offer except a desperate plea for help. Her small group leader, a woman named Sandra Phillips who had walked alongside Melissa through much of her difficult divorce and the challenging years that followed, listened with tears in her eyes. "Melissa," she said, "I don't think that was a coincidence, and I don't think you do either. I think God heard exactly what you prayed, and He sent exactly what you needed, wrapped in the kindness of a stranger willing to be used for exactly that purpose." Melissa's car was fully repaired within the week, and life gradually returned to its normal rhythm, though that night stayed with her in a way she describes as fundamentally changing how she understood prayer and provision. She had prayed countless prayers over the previous 2 years of single motherhood, many of them feeling, at the time, like they went unanswered or were answered too slowly to feel like real relief. That night on the highway became, for Melissa, a tangible, undeniable reminder that her prayers had never actually gone unheard, even in seasons when the answers felt distant or unclear. "I used to wonder, especially during the hardest parts of my divorce, whether God was actually paying attention to the small, daily struggles of my life, Melissa says now, telling the story to other single mothers in her church's support ministry. That night taught me something I don't think I'll ever forget. He was paying attention the whole time. Sometimes he answers in ways so specific, so perfectly timed, that there's no other explanation that makes sense except that he heard exactly what I prayed and sent exactly what I needed. Melissa has since become active in a ministry at her church supporting other single mothers navigating similarly difficult seasons, often sharing her highway story as an encouragement to women who, like her that night, feel they have nowhere left to turn and nothing left to offer except an honest, desperate prayer. If you are stranded tonight, in whatever way that word applies to your own life, whether it's a literal roadside emergency or the deeper, quieter kind of stranded that comes from carrying too much alone for too long, please hear Melissa's story and let it remind you of something important. God sees exactly where you are. He hears exactly what you're praying, even when it comes out desperate, unpolished, and uncertain. Sometimes His help arrives exactly how we expect it to. And sometimes, it arrives in a pickup truck on a rainy highway, driven by a stranger who simply chose, on an ordinary night, to take a different road home. Whatever you're facing tonight, keep praying. Help may already be on its way, closer than you think, and it might be wearing a face you've never met before.